Today in this video we're going to be looking at asteroid hauling within Starbase. And the main points we're going to be talking about are how you do it, the haulers that you can get in Starbase, the two different types, or the main types at least, and just about personally what I believe is the easiest way to asteroid haul as well as make money in Starbase. So let's talk about the process of asteroid hauling. So as you can see here in this clip, you notice that I'm flying out pretty far along the side of the belt out to go find these T10 asteroids that everyone hauls back to make their credits. I tend to fly about 150 to 200 kilometers out, as that's where I find the most T10s personally. Once you're out here, all you want to do is just find a gap inside the belt, like I'm doing here now, and fly into it. And once you begin flying into the belt, you usually want to fly about 50 to 25 kilometers into the belt next to the PvP zone. And what I like to do to make sure that I don't go into a PvP zone and risk my miner being damaged when hitting asteroids is I like to go into my gameplay settings and disallow my ships to leave the safe zone, which you will see that I will begin to change the settings here shortly. Once you've done that, the rest is pretty simple. All you need to do is fly around and look for tier 10s. Now if you don't know how to look for tier 10s, it's honestly pretty simple. All you need to do is, or at least what I find to help me find tier 10s, is just look for asteroids that look unnaturally large and tend to fly past you as you fly past them relatively slow. Or in comparison to every other asteroid around it that air quotations looks the same size. And what I mean by that they look the same size is because of how large a tier 10 is. It'll look like the same size as a tier 5 because it's so far away that the sizes look the same. As you can see here in this clip, I can already see the tier 10 asteroid, and you notice how it's flying a little slower than everything else around and just looks a little bit larger than everything. That lets me know that that is in fact a tier 10. So then once that happens, all you do is you slow down, if I can slow down here with this big old ship, and then you just lock it. Now each ship has its own different locking mechanism, which we will show here later in the video, but the ship that I designed here has auto locking, so all I need to do is check with the rangefinders and it will tell me if I can lock it. As you notice here, I'll try to get closer to double check if it actually is a tier 10, because I know sometimes I do mess up and accidentally check a tier 9, but as you can see here, over 400,000 kV, which clearly shows that it is a tier 10. So I press the lock button here, and then I just inch forward a little too quick here, but it's all good. And then once the asteroid hits that back rangefinder, it'll automatically lock the frame. And I might have to inch here a little forward. And once it gets inside, it automatically locks. And that is just a perk to this ship that I'm using. Every other ship may have a different way of locking. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the clip real quick while I'm going and looking for the other two asteroids. But I'll take this time to talk about the 4 different types of asteroids you'll find for tier 10s out here in the safe zone at this distance, and about how much money you'll make. So first off, the most common one that I seem to find are Agitites. And Agitite, you'll find Agitite as the outer shell and Coronium as the inner shell. This asteroid, you can see upwards of 600,000 credits per asteroid that you haul of these Coronium Agitite asteroids, and they are personally my favorite to find, and they're also not the rarest to find. It's just I didn't find any on this trip that I recorded. The next one that I like to haul is the Ice Nergite, and the Ice Nergite is the second best asteroid for hauling, as you'll make a decent amount of money on the Nergite, but for these ice asteroids you'll make over 200,000 credits on just the ice outer shell, as each stack of ice sells to about 1,000 to the tic-tac-toe or the asteroid drop-off station and origin stations. And that's, I mean, 200,000 for the 200 stacks of ice that you get on it. It's pretty good for these ice asteroids. The next ice asteroid you can find out here in the safe zone are the ice Vocarium. You'll make slightly less than this. You'll still get the 200,000 for the ice as the outer shell, but as Vocarium is not worth as much as the Nergite inner side of the other ice asteroid, you'll miss out on a little bit of credits, but you'll still make upwards of around 500 to 400,000 for both ice asteroids, or both types of ice asteroids. And then lastly, the Valkite Bastion asteroid. This personally is the worst asteroid you could haul. It's still pretty decent to find. They spawn pretty often, but in reality you're only making somewhere around 300,000 to 400,000 credits. And yes, that's still a lot of money and decent money, but personally, since I seem to find corrodiums a lot more often and they're worth so much more, I tend to pass up the Agitite, or not Agitite, the Valkite and Bastion asteroids. So as you can see here, I'm coming up to my final asteroid. Ended up getting 3 ice asteroids, so not a bad haul. I'll probably make somewhere around 1.3 to 1.2 million off this run, which is still really good money. But once you have all 3 of your asteroids, it's time to head back to whatever station you came from. I came from 24, so I just point directly to 24, knowing I'll stay inside the safe zone thanks to my settings. And of course the curvature of the safe zone along with the ring, I shouldn't ever bump into the PvP zone. But you know, now it's time to go watch some YouTube videos or movies or whatever you want to do as you fly back home, as this ship is not the fastest when full, but we'll talk about the ships later. But here we go, on our way home. Once you are back to your station of choice, you need to look for what I've dubbed the tic-tac-toe, or, but most people call it just the asteroid drop-off. It's this little 3x3 square zone, and all you need to do is fly inside of the little blue force field zones that you'll see, or instances, and then you need to unlock your frames. And once you've unlocked your frames, it may take a little bit for the game to recognize it, but once the game recognizes the asteroids, it'll automatically sell them and you'll receive all of your credits. As you can see here, I made about 1.2 million credits, give or take, you know, maybe 10,000 credits or whatever. And that's just from the 3 ice asteroids. I did a run right before recording this clip, and I made 1.8 or 1.6, I believe. 1.6 million? Yeah, that sounds about right. 1.6 million for the 3 corrodiums. You know, of course, if you get 3 uh, Valkyrie asteroids with the Bastion insides, you'll make a lot less. But now let's take a moment to look at the 2 types, or the 2 main types of asteroid haulers you can find within Starbase currently. The first type, and also the most common type, is a lock frame based asteroid hauler. This is the one that I was using in the previous clip. And this asteroid hauler is about the same as every other asteroid hauler that uses a lock frame. They all have that boxy shape due to the limitations of how lock frames snap together and function. And they all have thrusters in the back and propellant tanks, you know, every other ship requirements, batteries, and then a generator. The only difference is that asteroid haulers tend to have a beefier generator setup in order to keep the lock frames running, as lock frames take more power based on the size of the lock frame, not what is inside of them. The next main type of asteroid hauler is the lock beam. Now, a common thing that you'll notice with lock beam ships is that they tend to take on a round-ish shape, as you don't have to fight the boxy shape limitations of lock frames. The only difference between lock frames and lock beams is that lock beams take more power based on the weight that each beam is carrying rather than the area that each frame is using. While I'm the creator of the past blueprint of the box lock frame version ship, this ship was made by SmokeWow on the Starbase Ship Shop, and I purchased it as demonstration purposes for this video, and honestly it's a really well designed ship. And while I fly around and show off this ship, let me just talk about the common problems that both lock beams and lock frame asteroid haulers face, and that is the cursed voxel limit. If you don't know what the voxel limit is, it's essentially a hard stop of how large your ship can be based on voxels and pixels or whatever it's called in the game. Now, the current limit in the game is 2 billion voxels, and the reason why we have to face these problems, even though all our asteroid haulers tend to be under 600 million voxels, is because every asteroid you pick up, whether it be through the lock beams or the lock frames, counts towards the voxel limit of 2 billion. And it seems to be that most average tier 10 asteroids tend to take up around 500 to 400 million voxels, and because of this, most asteroid haulers tend to take on a very minimalist shape of just beams, lock frames, generators, propellant, thrusters, hardpoints, just all the basic necessities to get a ship flying. No decorations, or very little in some cases. However, if a lock frame or beam ship decides to, instead of carrying 3 tier 10s, they decide to carry 2 or even 1, that gives them a lot more space to add more thrusters to get a higher speed, or add a little more decorations and fluff, which I personally do not care for. But now that you know the gist of asteroid hauling, I mean, let's be honest, it's pretty much everything to it. Now you just gotta rinse and repeat and make a shitload of credits. So I'd like to thank you for watching. You know, if you have any questions that I didn't cover, please leave them down in the comments, and I'll try to respond back to you as fast as I can. Still in college. Shit kinda sucks. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Now get out there and start making some money.